My name is Alan Havorka, and today is March 25th, 2015. I'm here with Mr. Foster Stevens for the African American Ball State University Oral History Workshop. How are you doing today?
I'm
Mr.
doing
Stevens?
fine, Alan. And yourself?
I'm pretty good. So I'd like to begin with some basic biographical information, trying to set up who you are and where you came from. So can you tell me when were you born and where are you from?
Okay, I was born in 1950 in a place called Percy, Mississippi, and I lived in Mississippi until I was 7 years old. At that time, we moved to Memphis, my parents were following the jobs, and we moved to Memphis. We stayed there a while, and we moved to East St. Louis, following the jobs to Stockyard, and then we came to Gary in 1962. And the rest is history as far as Indiana is concerned. Mm-hmm. I graduated from Frable High School in 1968 in Gary, Indiana. I was in the top 25% of my class, and I had planned to go to Ohio Central State University because my sister went to Wilberforce, and I had gone down to visit her, and I liked what I saw. And one Saturday, my counselor had Manny Newsom, who was assistant state director of the State Scholarship Commission. And in the basement of my counselor's home, I got a scholarship to Ball State. Well, scholarship and national defense loan to Ball State. And I came to Ball State sight unseen, really. My first visit to Ball State was during orientation. And later when I came back to school, I came to school on the Indiana motor bus with a footlocker and a suitcase. And I think we were the largest, at that time, the largest black class of freshmen at Ball State. And I think we definitely had the largest number coming from Gary at one time. And enrollment Ball State was booming at that time because initially there were 3 in my room, and Ball State understood that attrition would take care of that. So about 3 or 4 weeks afterwards, people got homesick, and there were 2 in the room. Mm-hmm. So that worked out, and it was interesting because I had 2 guys named Bill. That's the first time I had really lived with Caucasian, and Bill's father, one of the Bill's fathers, was a car customizer, and he had customized supposedly, I don't know if you remember, you wouldn't remember 77 Sunset Strip, and Edward Burns played Kooky, and he had a hot rod. His father had done that car, and Bill had a 56 Chevy, which was fantastic. And we were going down, I think, a McGallion one day, and the brakes locked up, and we rode the sidewalk, and he said, "I don't have any insurance," and we were riding the sidewalk. But he was a great guy, and I came here. I intended to go into business education or technology education. I selected technology education because my favorite teachers were technology teachers, and I thought that if I took technology, I could go to class, make a project, and that would be it. Unknowing to me, I chose technology for the wrong reason, because business would have been easier, and I probably would have earned more money. But in technology, we had to justify everything we did. Once you had to justify it to do it, and then you had to write a summary and afterwards. So it wasn't just building things like in school. It was very academic, applied and academic. I had some great instructors. I got a great quality education here at Ball State, but there was a lot of pitfalls. Being black in the technology department, I was the only undergraduate in my classes all the way through for 4 years. People who would come in, and blacks would come in and start, but they always dropped out and chose another major. We had some very good instructors, and we had some very racist instructors. I had a class where one of my friends said, of course my friends were Caucasians, said B, what did you get out of that class? They called me B. What did you get out of that class? I said, I got a C. And they used the S word. You know, S-ing me, you were the smartest student in that class. I got an A, so-and-so got an A, and you got a C. That's wrong. So I made up my mind then, you cannot teach the white students without teaching me. I'm sitting next to them. My grade may not reflect it, but the knowledge will be there. And that happened. That made a difference. You know, we learned how to work the system, because if you had a racist prof and you had 16 hours, you may have to drop 4 hours and to keep your GPA up. You know, some of my GPA at sometimes was, you know, right on the borderline. And after I made up my mind, I'm getting out of here, my GPA went up, and I was home on a break, and I got a letter from the dean's office. And of course, I was afraid. And it said I'd made the dean's list, and I was shocked. You know, from that point on, it just took off. School just became very easy. You know, school wasn't hard, but, you know, you're not getting the grades that you think that you should get. You know, it was demoralizing sometimes. You know, I had an instructor, John Barber, and he was a very good instructor. But we were talking about Alan earlier. Alan, who was my roommate at one point in time, and we
actually. So before we get into the nitty-gritty details of your experience here at Ball State, I actually would like to hear a little bit about your early life in Mississippi, and then your move all the way up to here in Gary, Indiana.
Okay.
Muncie, or Ball State.
Okay, my life in Mississippi. Well, you know, I was really too young to really understand a lot of the racism and things going on, but my parents did. And one of the things, my godfather had a bus and a truck, and he took people to the cotton fields to pick cotton. I didn't have to go, but at 7 years old, I went. And the thing I remember is because I think you had to pick, you know, at least 100 pounds of cotton a day or better, 200 something. But you know, they want the good sacks and all that to pick cotton in, not ones without the holes in it. Because he was my godfather, I always had a brand new sack with what they call the Viva bottom on it and everything. And I would pick 25 pounds of cotton, and I would drink all the pop and eat the sandwiches and stuff. You know, I felt, you know, hey, people would be mad at me, but hey, that was my godfather. So I had the experience that people had, you know, picking cotton and all that, but I didn't have to do it. You know, I did experience. We moved to Memphis. I remember, you know, we had white only, and you had to get on the back of the bus. You get on the back of the bus. You paid on the front, got on the back, and the seat to the right when you got on the back, blacks could sit there, but if whites got on the bus and they needed that seat, you had to get up and stand up. I remember that as a child. One of the things Dr. Martin Luther King was very, very, you know, important to me is because my father was a sanitation worker in Memphis, and my aunt worked at the hospital, and those were the two entities that he was fighting for when he was killed in Memphis. Fortunately, we had left Memphis when he was killed, but every time I hear it, I think about it because he was fighting for my dad and my aunt. So we moved here, and, you know, that was, you know, a blessing. And one of the things in Gary, I remember at school, I went to Frable, and Frable had been integrated at one point in time, but it was pretty much black and Hispanic when I went there. Our textbooks, if we had 30 students in a class, for example, I use 30 as a number, we may have gotten 25 used textbooks in fair condition with the white school's names in them. And if we had 30 kids and we got 25 used, and they would give us 5 new ones. You know, if they couldn't make out 30 fair condition, we would get 5 new ones. So a lot of the things that people are talking about that happened in the past, I did experience them, but not to the extent that my parents did. You know, so I didn't. I can acknowledge it, and it made me a better person because it made me want to be better.
And so, what years did you move to Memphis and then to Gary, and how old were you?
We moved to Memphis. We left Memphis when I was 11, and we stayed in East St. Louis for a year. My father worked at the stockyards. Then we came to Gary. The mills were in Gary. We came to Gary.
But you said, did you go anywhere between Percy, Mississippi, to Memphis in between?
Pretty much. From Mississippi, I left Mississippi and went to Memphis.
Oh, because I thought you said that you were in Mississippi until you were 7, right?
Right.
Oh, and then so you went to Memphis when you were 7?
Right.
Okay. And then, so do you have any siblings? How old are they?
I have a sister who's 2 years older than me. That's the one that went to Wilberforce University. She retired from Social Security. I have a brother who's 17 months younger than me. He retired from the Air Force. And I have a brother who's 4 years younger than me. And he's retired now on disability. He had an industrial accident when all 10 of his fingers got cut off. But they reattached them, so he has use of them. But, he doesn't have good dexterity.
And so what was your family life like?
We had a great family life, my mom was, your brothers and sisters, there was a lot of love in our family. We shared a lot of things. We still share a lot of things. We are a very family-oriented group. As a matter of fact, like we talking about Chicago and Gary, all of our family members who are from Mississippi, we have a Chicago-Gary family club, and we meet once a month, and we have meetings and we have food and we do things, and we have a national family group, and we have reunions every 2 years. So that's a planned vacation. We may be in Vegas. We may be in Atlanta, we may be in St. Louis, anywhere. Wherever there are family members who want to host a family reunion, we do that. And if you come to my home, you can see pictures hanging up where we have 200 and 300 people on a picture from the reunion.
Wow, so you have a really large family then?
I have a very large family.
That's amazing. So tell me a little bit about your experience when you got here to Gary, into high school.
When I got to Gary?
Yeah.
When I got to Gary, it was a lot different than, let's say, Mississippi and Memphis. Because when I got to Gary, I was 13 years old. And we went to school, and we went to pretty much a black school, but it had caring teachers. I mean, teachers who really cared about you and wanted you to learn and challenge you. Okay, and one of the great things about maybe getting a little ahead of it, those teachers and everything. When I became a teacher, they became my colleagues, and we became friends. And then I became president of the union, and I became their leader, And just today I'm here, and one of my teachers is being funeralized today, and I came here so I couldn't go to the funeral. But we were great friends. So I mean, I really appreciate that. When I was in school, one of my technology teachers, gave me a car my senior year. He had this car, and I asked him what was he going to do with it because he wasn't using it. He said, "Well, it's not working, so I should put it in the shop, and I'll pay for it. I'll pay you for it, and I'll get it fixed." And he put it in the shop, and when I came home, I paid to get it out. I said, "What do I owe you?" And he said, "You're trying to do something with your life, and it's yours." And that car went back and forth to Ball State many times. As a matter of fact, that was the car I used when I first started working until I bought a better car.
So it sounds like your experiences in Gary, that you had a tight-knit community within where you lived. I don't know, what was was there any segregation up there in Gary?
It was, for example, most of the blacks lived in Midtown, mm-hmm. and the Caucasians, the whites lived far west, west side, and south Glen Park. We would go to, for example, you had to go to Maryville, which was unincorporated at the time, and that's where the drive-in was. If you went to the drive-in and you were coming back, and you would get heckled all the way back to a certain point till you got to the skating rink. And at that point, the Caucasians would turn around and go back because they didn't want to come across the hill over what is now, if you 94, if you're from Chicago, when you come in 94 at Broadway, that was kind of like a dividing line. And we had, I live in the Miller section of Gary now. I can walk to Lake Michigan every morning. At that time, we didn't live in Miller. We did not go to the beaches, Marquette Park. We didn't go to Marquette Park. We went to the beach in East Chicago and Michigan City. We couldn't go to the beach in Gary. So Gary was segregated to an extent.
And were there any incidents in particular that stood out to you of any discrimination or unfair treatment?
Not overt like you would see like on TV and other places, but you look at, Rich Gordon Hatcher became mayor during the time that first black mayor in a major city, during the time when I was in Gary, and I was just riding down, and there was a law in the books that said no municipality could incorporate between 3 mile zone. And they passed a special law so that Maryville could incorporate, so that Gary could not annex Maryville. So, and I was just looking at, about things happen by design. I was just looking at, I look at Muncie, I look at Anderson. Well, Anderson going through some of the same things Gary went through because of Guy Lamp and Delco Remy leaving, but they're industrial. But I was just looking at smaller communities, how they're developed. And you look at Gary, which is right there on the lakefront, no one's coming in investing. Pretty much, if you look at Northwest Indiana, if you compare it to Indianapolis, there's no development there, and it goes back to when U.S. Steel was a big powerhouse and was putting a lot of money into Indianapolis and stuff. If you look at the politics of it, we don't want Northwest Indiana being more powerful than Marion County. Marion County did a unigov thing to make sure to solidify their base. It used to be just Indianapolis, then they did a unigov of all of Marion County considered Indianapolis. And they tried Metro Lake up in Northwest Indiana, but that didn't work.
So what were your experiences like in high school that led you eventually into college?
Pardon me?
What were your experiences in high school that led you to college?
Well, I always knew I wanted to go to college. I wanted to be a lawyer. And like I said, I had good teachers. I remember one of my English teachers. I had the pleasure at that time, the unfortunate pleasure, but in retrospect, the pleasure of having the same English teacher for sophomore and junior English. And my senior year, she wanted me to take an accelerated course, and I begged her not to. But teachers knew the ability of students. We had a class where, you had various levels of students in the class when I was a sophomore, and we had to read books, and novels. And some people would have a very small novel. And I remember I had to read Ben-Hur. And that was a very large novel. And I didn't want to read it. And I begged and pleaded with her to give me another book. And she said, Foster Stevens, you can talk until you're blue in the face. You're reading Ben-Hur. So while everyone was out playing basketball, I was sitting in my bed reading Ben-Hur, and I thank her for it today. And she and I became very close friends, and we would meet at my godmother's house, because unknown to me, she was very close friends with my godmother, and we would meet at my godmother's house every Christmas Eve. She passed recently from cancer, so that was the last time I saw her. She died about a month later, unknowing to me when I hugged her. That was the last time I would see her. I have that picture in my cell phone now. So, you know, she was just a fantastic person.
It sounds like that you had a lot of people in your life who you worked with, or just in your daily life that you were really close to. What were some family memories you had with people who were either by blood or by relation that you were just really close with when you were growing up?
What was what?
What were some really good memories you had with people either in your immediate family, extended, or people who were with you your daily life that you just considered family while you were growing up?
In the black community, you have extended family. But my mom was a very key factor. My mom had an 8th grade education, but she always insisted that we go to school and get an education. When my brother was in the 6th grade, the one next to me, he came home telling us something about his teacher, Mr. Lewis. I said, Mr. Lewis, this and that. She said, boy, I don't want to hear nothing about Mr. Lewis. You better get your butt up there and do what Mr. Lewis told you to do. And my brother probably was as smart as one of us, but he just didn't apply himself the way we did. But he did a career in the military, and he's doing quite well now. But, she just 2 days ago, I was at my mom's house, and we were doing some financial things. And I have a college education, and I'm very good at math, but my mother can count just as good or better than me. She keeps me on my toes when it comes to that, She just didn't have the opportunity that we had, but she insisted that we have an education. That was, she did all she could to make sure. One time on here, she thought I didn't have any money, so she sent me some money. I said, okay, fine. And then on a Sunday night, I got a special delivery. She sent me some more money, and she said, because I want to make sure you had something to eat, My dad died when I was a senior in college. My parents were divorced, and he died when I was a senior in college, and I did not get to be a man with my father. Now, my brother, I have an older brother. I do have an older brother by my father's first marriage, and he and my dad, they were buddies, and I never could. I was always, like a child, because when he died in my senior year in college, and I didn't get that experience. And that's something I wish I had gotten, the experience of being an adult with my father. I have that experience with my mom. Matter of fact, I go by and check on her all the time. I was with her yesterday, just prior to coming here. Getting ready to come here. But my mom has been a very strong factor in my life. I had, when I first started working, I was working on an NYC program, and I was a custodian, the second man at the school, and I was a custodial aide. And when I got there, it was during the summer, and there were like about 15 guys working in the, cleaning the school. And I came in, he gave me a stick with a pick on it and told me to police the grounds from the school to the fire station. I said, Lord have mercy. And one day I came to work early, looked at the clock an hour early. So when I was sitting on the railing of the school, and he came, he said, we sat and talked on the rails before we went in. He said, do you know how to lay tile? And I said, no. I said, but I'm willing to learn. He said, okay, come over to my house Saturday. And I went over and I started learning how to lay tile, do construction work with him. And when I was in college, he had a family. I guess he had a blended family. He had about 6 kids. And when I would come home from college, every time I came home, he would give me a box of canned goods and $20. And He was a strong mentor of mine because of my technology background and what he taught me. It's like now, it's like I built my own garage, I built my own deck, I remodeled my home. I'm getting ready to build kitchen cabinets now. You know, all of those things, you know, started with him. My father was a certified carpenter. When he came out of the military, he was a certified carpenter, heavy-duty equipment operator. So I guess some of it is genetic. You know.
And so what were the names of your parents?
My father's name was Foster, and my mother's name is Viola.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Same last name, Stevens?
Yeah.
Okay, and then when were they born?
Both were born in Mississippi.
What year?
My dad was born in 22, my mother was born in 33.
And what did your mom do as an occupation?
Well, my mom, she retired from St. Margaret's Hospital in the housekeeping department.
Okay, and then your father, he worked a couple different jobs.
Well, he worked a number of different jobs, but he was a very good mechanic.
And then he said he served, did he?
Yeah, he served in the military.
World War II?
World War II.
What did he do?
He was a heavy-duty equipment operator and a carpenter. As a matter of fact, I was just looking at, I have all his papers when he died. I have all his papers. I was going through some stuff this week, and I just happened to look at it, looking at his papers with his certification, one for being a carpenter and heavy-duty steam shovel operator. But he never could get those type jobs. During that time, had my dad been able to get a job in the construction field like that, we may own a construction company now.
And what were the names of your siblings again?
My oldest brother's name is Jerry. My sister under Jerry's name is Olivia. My brother under me is Larry, and my youngest brother is Andrew.
And their last names, are they all the same?
Everyone except for Andrew.
Okay, and what's his last name?
Johnson.
Johnson, okay. And then, so you mentioned that you're in your senior year of high school, you got the National Defense Loan.
Right.
And that was to Ball State.
Correct.
So, can you tell me a little bit about what your beginning time here was like at Ball State?
Okay, and I say I arrived at Ball State. My first trip here was for orientation. And when I came to school, I came on the Indiana motor bus with a Foot Locker and a suitcase. When I got it, the $1,500, we had 3 quarters, and that was $500 a quarter. And when I paid for tuition and everything, my books had $60 left. I got a job with the Library Film Service. And I was asking you earlier that she worked for the Media Center. Because my job was, I got a job, you know, they went out and they had people to go out and show the films with a 16mm projector. And sight unseen with it. That was a gentleman named Basil. I can't remember Basil's last name, but it was Basil. And when I went in, he gave me a toolbox and said, are you mechanically inclined? And I said, yes. And he gave me a toolbox, and I was the maintenance person for the 16mm projectors all over the campus. So I would go through and maintain projectors. If I couldn't do, they would leave me a note if something was wrong, or I just went by and serviced them, cleaned them, oiled them, and everything. And if I couldn't fix them in the field, then they would take them back to the media center. So I did that for a while.
And so when you came here, your major was in technology education?
Right. Industrial arts technology.
And then you switched over to technology education.
Well, it was industrial arts, and then evolved into technology education. Like today, I went over and looked at the department, and they're going through a transformation now. They've gutted the building and everything. I went through and looked at it. You know, we had Ball State was, you know, when I came to Ball State, chose Ball State after getting the scholarship because Ball State, I think, was number 2 in the nation for teachers. You know, it had been a teachers college that had just switched over to university, and Columbia, I think, was number 1. And Ball State was a very good school. I have a lot of friends of mine went to Indiana State, but I can't. To me, their education can't compare to the education I got at Ball State. For in technology, we had like 8 areas, and most had 6. We had synthetics and ceramics, and the other areas didn't. other schools didn't offer that. No. And when I went over to the department, and I was just looking at everyone's on laptops and telephones and so forth now. And one of the things I did do when I was still in the classroom, I became certified Cisco networking instructor. So doing networking. So I did that, but I just keep evolving because of Ball State, how they taught me. I just keep evolving. I don't want to be stagnant. So.
And so you mentioned that Ball State had just become a university at this point. So you came to Ball State during a kind of a critical moment in its transition. So what was that like? Because I know there's a multitude of events going on campus that kind of really shaped it going forward, even until today.
Well, that evolution, I guess we were in its infancy. You know, you were still with the old industrial arts, and it was gradually evolving into that technology part. And we had some forward-thinking instructors in our department. I remember Dr. Jake Reams. He was something else. He was a very professional person. I mean, everyone feared Jake Reams, but he was extraordinary. I had to do a curriculum project with him, and you had to write up a curriculum and go out in the corporate school system a month and teach it for a week. And you did it in Paris, and we went out, but prior to going out, you had to submit your curriculum. And I really believe Dr. Reams emptied a big pen on our curriculum. So we went out and taught the lesson, and we came back in. He was evaluating us, and my partner, I can't remember, it was Bim. We call him Bim, and Bim. He said, "Well, it seems like Bim had more control in the class than you did." I said, "Yes, he did." And he said, "Was he student teaching or something?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, then he was supposed to have more control than you." And we both got an A out of that class. And we were shocked. You didn't get A's out of Jake Green. But we were really shocked. We had Dr. Edwards, who was in the professional courses, who was a very, very great professional person, a very human person. You know, Dr. Reams was like Dr. Reams still, but tall, thin guy. Well, Dr. Edwards was kind of a little short guy, smoked cigarettes all the time, but he was a very personable person you just go feel comfortable talking to. But all the instructors were good. Some were, you know, but I really learned a lot in the department.
Earlier you mentioned that there were some professors who were racist. Can you tell me a little bit about, because you mentioned there's some good professors, what were some negative experiences you had with professors?
Well, you know, like, you just don't get the grade. I don't think you can learn. You don't get the grade. And then I had one good instructor, John Barber, in the history department. And that's when I was telling her earlier, Alan and I were roommates, and we were living out in the city. And we would say, "Hey, man, let's stay at home today and let's watch our cars." So we may miss a class. Another day we may say, "Let's stay at home, let's cook some beans." You know, it took a while to cook some beans. And John Barber gave Blue Book essay tests. And when, you know, I would miss class and I would come in and take the Blue Book essay test and I would pass with a good score. And he told me one thing, he said, "Foster, how's it that you miss class sometimes and you come in and you do so well on your test?" I said, "Well, I can read, and you're testing from the book. I can read, you know." But back to my English teacher, Mrs. Cameron, she taught us to read and taught us to write and how to sentence structure and so forth. You know, so it was easy. He asked me to be an assistant with him. He was working on something, trying to get some credit for it. I said, "Well, are you getting credit now?" He said, "No." "Well, you know, you taking 18 hours or 16 hours. You don't have time for this, especially being a young student. So I told him I couldn't do it without credit. But he made the class exciting, but I had other things on my mind until my sophomore year, and we didn't do that. But I enjoyed this class.
So you mentioned that you were roommates with Alan Williams. When did you meet him, and when did you start rooming with him?
Okay, it's interesting. I met Alan my freshman year, and what had happened was I'd been on campus. I told you, came on Indiana motor bus. I didn't know anyone pretty much, and these guys came in the dorm, and a couple of them had plugs at the back of their head, and they had been in a fight. But what happened, they'd gone out in the city of Muncie. I mean, they were partying in the city of Muncie, and some of the guys from Muncie came in and disrupted the party. And so that's when, Alan got hit in the head and a couple other guys. So I said, I met the guys, and they were talking about going out. I went up to them, I said, man, my name is Foster Stevens. I'm new here on campus. If you guys are going out off campus, I would like to ride with you guys. He said, sure, come on. And that's when I met Alan, my freshman year, and we've been friends ever since. They're lifelong friends. Yeah.
And so what point did you join Omega Psi Phi?
Okay, that was my freshman year when I came to school. They had Kappa Alpha Psi, which was a black fraternity, and they had Delta Sigma Theta, which is a black sorority. They had Omega Alpha Omega, which was a local fraternity, and they had KT Sigma, which was a local sorority. Well, Omega Alpha Omega members were members of Omega Psi Phi, but had no recognition on campus as Omega Psi Phi, only Omega Alpha Omega. We petitioned the university to become a national fraternity status on campus. And Ball State response was both to us and to KT Sigma, which later became AK. Well, you have one black fraternity, and they told them you have one black sorority. Why do you need another? Well, you have a number of white fraternities, a number of white sororities. So things going on and on and on. We eventually got national status on campus, and Alan and I, we were charter members of Omega Psi Phi here on campus. And the same thing happened with, they call it the Multicultural Center now. We petitioned the university for a black house. The university said no. And we turned around and did the same proposal, and we wrote and asked for a special programs house. And the university said yes. And they got Bob Foster, who was counselor, the first black counselor, I think, in his Muncie school system. He came over to be the director. And Bob Cody, who was one outstanding football player here, he became the assistant director of the Special Programs House, which evolved into the Multicultural Center. We were the ones who wrote that program to get the catalyst to get that going here at the university.
So the actions that you took back then had an influence on the multicultural center that exists now today?
Correct. That's the outgrowth, the evolution of the Special Programs House, the Multicultural Center.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because I know I read a couple of documents on the archives dealing with Bob Foster and then chronicling this series of events that led to his creation. So it was really interesting to hear that.
Yeah, we had to fight for that.
Did you? What year did your fraternity become a national fraternity?
On campus, I believe it was in 1969. I believe it was 1969.
Okay.
Because we were still functioning. We just had local status, but we were still functioning, and then we got national status, and we got the national chapter designation, Upsilon Beta.
And then that's when the university recognized you?
Right.
And so, were there any other campus clubs or organizations you were part of while you were here?
Not really.
Not really?
Black Student Union.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that. That was the catalyst. They got a lot of things going here at Ball State.
Like what?
Everything, like we had, there's this one guy, Ralph Butler. He was supposed to be the Black Panther. We talked about the courses, the flunk out rate of blacks at the university and everything. So it was that group that brought attention to those things at the university.
Yeah. And so one of the things in my research I noticed was that in 1968, that was when there were 50 black students who walked out on John Emmons's retirement speech. You weren't there quite yet.
I wasn't there.
But did you know anyone who was involved with that?
Well, probably those persons who remained here when I got here were there.
Yeah.
But because when we came, like I said, we were the largest freshman black class in 1968, I believe. It was like I was walking across campus today and the same people, and I was just speaking and everything. We were glad to see a black. Hey, what's going on? What's going on? During that time, we were very friendly towards one another. So well, I'm trying to think what was the incident. We were protesting something, and Bud Getcher was the basketball coach, and a couple of our brothers. I think we had Steve Tucker, Ronald Fields, and Marzine Moore. Tucker and Fields were Omegas, and Marzine was a Kappa, and they got platooned in and out. And I remember Tucker was a fantastic scorer, and Tucker lived off campus. And just prior to me moving off campus, the basketball team was had a road trip, and Tucker had difficulty getting picked up one time. So Tucker stayed in my room in Wagner Hall, and because he didn't want to be late, he wanted to make sure he got there. And I distinctly remember I was there. We went to the door, and Coach Getchell came and opened the door, and Tucker was coming out, and he said, "Run, run, goddammit, run!" And Tucker didn't run. He slammed the door and left Tucker. And Tucker didn't make the road trip. And then Tucker got cut from the team, or Ron got cut first from the team, but he kept his scholarship. Tucker got cut, and we were really upset. So we were walking. It was like at Ball State, when you went to the gym, all the blacks sat like in a corner. And as we came in, we moved out. And this particular day, we all walked out on the floor. Well, we weren't going to, we just went out to disrupt the game and draw attention to it. And so this was strictly coincidental. We were walking towards Bud Getchell, and he jumped up and ran off the bench. So that brought some attention to it. And I think it was the president then. I can't remember. I can see his face, but that brought some attention to.
Was that Pruitt?
It's Pruitt. It was Pruitt. That brought attention to what was going on the basketball court. So those Black Student Union did that. So those kind of things.
Because I understand, because I actually have a couple of things from the Daily News, and some other things that I think the Student Association, or the Student Government Association, whatever it was called at that time, did a report on racism at Ball State. I don't know if you want to take a look at this. Where kind of like I highlighted the part where that was fairly important. It concluded, there was racism at Ball State in some degrees.
Well, let's bring back memories. This picture of the Payne twins. Look like Crable. But
With who?
That's Donald and Ron Payne twins, and I think that's James Crable, who's a football fullback, who was also a member of our fraternity.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, both Payne brothers were too. So the Omegas were very visible on this campus.
And one of the things I also read within some of my research I hear is that there was a black ball state and then a white ball state. Can you elaborate on that? Is this something that you felt existed? It's just a couple comments from a few students.
Well, we all attended class together, and pretty much that was as far as it went. Socially, there was a black ball state and there was a white ball state. Now, our numbers were such that when I parked over in the parking garage over on College, I came through the student union and I looked at the student center, how it is now, and the open flow, and before it was like the tally, and it was all enclosed, and right on the corner, it's like those two tables were reserved kind of like for blacks. Whites didn't sit at those tables. And as we came in, you would go out, and that's what we were in the students, and this was our area, and just like at the gym, in the corner, and as our numbers expanded, we move out. Upstairs, in the student center, rooms 301 and 302, and it looks very small now, but that's where the black population had our weekend activities for the most part. Either there or over in Studebaker in the Sabine room. I don't even know if the Sabine room still exists. But, those areas are small areas, and if you could look at those areas and consider that for the weekend, the entire black population is having their social events in room 301 and 302, a little conference room upstairs. The ballroom, it cost $50 to rent the ballroom at that time. And each fraternity or sorority generally had one activity a year in it, because our numbers were so small in consideration, in comparison to the overall student population, that when we had the ballroom, we had to invite people from Gary, Fort Wayne, Indianapolis, everywhere black, so that we could fill the ballroom. But it was strictly, there was not that much intermixing between your races. We were pretty segregated.
How did that make you feel?
It was like you said, it was like two different universities, and went to class, and you had some friends in class, and you would see them, but socially, outside of class, we really didn't associate with them too much. It was definitely distinctly two different universities now that you bring it to attention.
And so, and then previously you mentioned that the Omegas were very visible on campus. Can you tell me a little bit about the Omegas and your experience with them?
Well, this was a social fraternity. One of the things we learned leadership, we learned brotherhood, and things. We were blessed to have the opportunity to come to school and get an education. So what we have to do is give back to the community, and we did. Things we did. It was our, really, in school, it was our like getaway. This was our retreat, our safe haven. This was what we did away from the university, the stress of the university. This is where we let our hair down. And we moved out into the city. We couldn't find suitable housing for the most part, affordable, or someone would rent to you or close around campus, so we lived out in the city. So that he made it more two different universities.
So did you from my research, I saw that there was incidences where the off-campus housing was in many ways discriminatory, where it would not.
Absolutely. And so we had to live so far out of the city.
And so did you end up? Where did you end up living? Did you live in more of the black community?
We lived in the black community. We lived like we had this one house, Ron Fields, who's one of my roommates at different time. They called him Candyman. You know, he and I were like inseparable at one point. We lived out on South Park, and it was considered the last house in the city limits. On Saturday mornings, you could see the guys going by, going into the fields hunting, and the field mice would come in the house sometimes, and it sounded like an adult walking. And this house I lived in, the Dorsons were distant cousins of mine. I was supposed to be living, you know, Dave Dorson played for the Bears. Mm-hmm. I was supposed to be living with them, you know, because you couldn't live off campus. And we, you know, told them I was living with my aunt, you know, they're distant relatives. And I was supposed to live with them, but actually I wasn't. But then I rented a house from Arthur Dorson, who was Dave's oldest brother. So this was the last house in the city limits. So you know how far out we were. Mm-hmm. And then when we left that, we lived on Park and Blaine. And asked Alan, when you interview Alan about the mausoleum, they call it the mausoleum because it was a very old-looking house. It had old furniture and everything in it, you know, but it was a place for us to live. And everyone used to tease us because, you know, when you have the weekend parties at someone's house, say, where are you going? You going to the mausoleum? You know, so that was a joke around campus, the mausoleum.
So you actually had a distant family here in Muncie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But
that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And Alan, I don't know, Alan lived next door before we became roommates. He lived next door to Reinhardt's barbershop. That was a black barbershop. And they lived on, the barbershop was on one side and Alan lived on the other side.
And then some of my research from the Daily News, I saw there was a little bit of some spats between the white fraternities and black fraternities with, I don't know, maybe not filing codes or whatever. I don't know if you were around at that time, but let me find the correct article. Here we go. An article that ran in the Daily News I found.
Omega Alpha Omega, that's us.
Yeah.
I was here, they used this name. This was not only was the university fighting to keep us off campus, so was Kappa Alpha Psi fighting to keep us off campus because they were the only black fraternity. And we were in order to be a member of the national fraternity, you have to have members who are members of that fraternity, and you need, X number of national members to form a chapter. And the way we're set up is that to make sure that you're properly instructed, that any members coming into a fraternity where there is no chapter, then they must come under the auspices of a graduate chapter. And Zeta Phi in Indianapolis was a graduate chapter. The members who were here in Omega Alpha Omega were made as Omega men of the national fraternity through Zeta Phi chapter and sanctioned by our national organization. However, we did not have national status on campus, so Omega Alpha Omega was the name of the group on campus, but those persons were also members of Omega Psi Phi, and they were saying that we were pledging members in Omega Psi Phi, telling we're Omega Alpha Omega. We didn't have interfraternity council sanction, so they were trying to get us kicked off the yard. So they would be the kings, the only ones.
And clearly that didn't work.
It didn't work. It didn't work.
And so, but going back to the question I asked was there any conflict at all between the white fraternities and the black fraternities?
We really didn't have that much. This is ironic. The thing that just came out about the hazing out there in Oklahoma. I won't use any names or everything, but we knew, we didn't deal with them. We did have interaction. We played flag football. We enjoyed that, But other than that, I remember one incident where we played the Betas and was living in Wagner Hall, and our student assistant, student staff was a member of the Betas, and we got into a little altercation on the football field, and he came back and he wanted to retaliate, so we had to get I think Joe Mumpower was the door director. We had to get him involved in that, so he had to go downstairs, not to cross our doors. He was told not to cross our door. If you want to see someone on the other side, go downstairs. It wasn't really that bad, but that was 1969, beginning of '69, school year.
So, were you there when Bobby Kennedy came and visited? Since you started in '68,
right?
So, were you here when Bobby Kennedy came and visited Ball State?
I think that happened.
Happened in the spring, didn't it?
The spring, yeah.
The spring.
Spring, yeah.
Okay.
Because I remember it happened in the spring because I was over to a friend's house. We had been out, and his grandmother said, "Oh, they shot Bobby Kennedy," and I hadn't gotten to college yet.
Mm-hmm.
So just prior to me getting there.
Okay. So I'll touch back on that later with MLK, but I want to real quick. I want to talk to you about. You mentioned how you guys were all like brothers and how you were really close.
You know what handwriting this is?
Whose is it?
Mine.
That's yours?
That's my handwriting. I actually have this document at home.
Do you? Yeah. It's on the repository on the website.
Yeah, I actually have this document. It's my handwriting.
So can you tell me a little bit about that? I saw there it says Devastating Divas, or what is it?
Devastating Deuces.
Deuces? Okay.
Okay. Devastating Deuces, there were two of us. Started out, Pat Craig, who was on the baseball team. Pat Craig and John McCoy were on the baseball team. They called them the Black Mac and Pat. Pat and McCoy. John McCoy was from South Bend, and Pat Craig and I pledged together.
So is that like a list of people that you pledge with?
Okay, each one of these is a pledge class, a group of people who pledge together.
Okay.
Okay. Some of them pledge more than once because when they pledge the first time, they, for whatever reason, a grade point average, or they just weren't ready at that time, or financially they couldn't pay the money or whatever. So they came back and pledged again. Yeah, this is really interesting. I don't know how this got on the depository. This is actually my handwriting, and this is like in a big composition book. This is the Vita pages.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, this is interesting. And what we're doing is trying to put a history together of the chapter from inception. The when you were talking about that interfraternity charge there, that's what you're talking about. This first group: Thomas Kelly, Vincent Lynch, Charles Payne, Ronald Payne, Donald Payne, Tony Payne, and John Buckner, and Alan Williams. That's what that group. That's what that IFC charge came from. Yeah, seeing Mike Chisley down here, he's going to be interviewed. Like most of the people that you're interviewing, I went to school with or know. Yeah. Anything else you want to know about that? Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. So did you tell me, like, you guys had, like, you had rituals as well, and because actually have where is that article?
I know it's one you probably talking when you got the three guys. That's probably the one you're referring to.
I think it is.
In front of the Teachers College?
I believe so. Here, let me find it. Yep.
Yep. I knew this was the one you was talking about. This was, well, you know, in the tradition of Omega, you know, like the black colleges, the historical black colleges and everything, it symbolized the end of your pledgeship. We just at that time, we shaved our heads. That was like normal. So I think this was I think I had a lot to do with this. I mean, we only had three, so we wanted to do something. So let's do something a little different. And we did that. But you know, it was like psychological. Like people, the things they're doing today, we didn't do back then. We cared about our. You know, if you want someone to come to your organization, and this is supposed to be your brother and your friend, you can't brutalize them. We just did things for fun. Yeah, I knew this is what you were talking about.
What did the people that you guys made do this think about?
Say what?
What did they think about having to shave their heads with symbols?
That was on the group that did that.
That was on the group?
Yeah, it was on the group that did that. I was on my way out. Let me see a picture. I'll name the people on there for you. See, Dave Coleman became a policeman in Fort Wayne. He later became, we still stay in contact with one another. He later became deputy chief of police in Carolina, and he became the director of campus police, I think one of the North Carolina schools. So, Prentice Pascal, he's a state trooper, and he's doing, I think he's working with the CSI with Indiana State Police now. And Freddie Cox, you know Freddie Cox. He was president of the Alumni, and do you have him down for interviewing?
Not sure.
Fred Cox. He was president of the Black Alumni and of the Alumni.
So, since you lived off campus, what was some of your interactions that you had with the outside Muncie community? Because Ball State was very much like an island, and then Muncie was its own thing.
Okay, when we first went out in the city, there was friction between the campus and the city. Then we just became assimilated as part of the city. You know, a lot of people, we have parties, a lot of people would come over to the parties and things. You know, it was, like I said, Al lived next to Reinhardt Barbershop. He rented from Reinhardt. It's like something like a duplex with a barbershop on one side. And Carl Reinhardt was actually a student here at Ball State. Mike Faulkner, the Faulkner Funeral Home, he was a student here at Ball State. So there were, people from Muncie who actually went to school here. Tommy Young, he was in my department. He worked for Delco, I believe, in Anderson, but he lived out in the city near the Pink Panther, the last house in the city limits. I want to tell you, we had Ron and I. It was Pink. They called it the Pink Panther, and he lived around the corner from it. And then Al and I lived out on Leland together out there. So we lived within the community, and we had friends in the community. And some of those persons went to Ball State.
Mm-hmm. And so, when you're outside in the community and active around the Muncie area, did you experience more discrimination here in Muncie than you did when you were in Gary? What was the atmosphere like?
We really didn't deal with the Muncie community in that vein because we went to school and we came out out in the community and lived, but we didn't have that much interaction with except for the black population, with the white population in the city of Muncie. And I guess they looked at the Ball State students a little different too, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned there was a little bit of friction when you first moved out there. What did that friction look like?
Well, for the most part, when you first move off campus, guys move off campus into the city. All the females stay on campus. So, of course, it's always, you are out here and you're, dating our girls. That's where that friction come from, So once we got past them, we were just people. We didn't have that. Mm-hmm. But initially, there, I think it was a dance when Alan and it was a dance at Hean Park, I think it was, or McCullough Park, one of them. And it was a dance, and then the city guys came in, and it was just a big mess. Everybody, either you got hit in the head, or you got the windows. It was ironic, got hit in the head, or the windows knocked out your car. No one knew. It was just coincidence that it happened like that.
And so you mentioned when can you go a little bit into the time you were living with Alan Williams?
With Al?
Yeah.
Well, when I was living with Alan, it was Alan and DeWitt McGee and myself. And we just had a great time. I remember one time, like I say, we couldn't rent the ballroom, and we rented the ballroom, once a year. So there's this club, a supper club out here on 32, Yorktown, called Label Mine. And Alan had found the place, so we had our big dance, and then we were going to have an after set because they served breakfast, into 6 o'clock in the morning, and we were going to go out there after the dance. So Alan and I had invited some young ladies from Indianapolis, and we had the key to the place. And everybody is out there waiting on Alan and me, and we sit at home with our young ladies. And we got there late. So, and Alan loves music. On the way here, I was playing some of the music he had, CDs he had made for me. You talking about a collection of albums. I have a collection, but Alan has a collection of music that you wouldn't believe. And he loved to record. So we had all the music, and I was playing some of the music, and it was just taking me back in time as I was coming down here. I mean, we used to cook. We used to do some of everything. He's quite an intellectual person, too. Yeah.
So there's always music playing at your house, then?
Oh, yeah. We played music, and when we weren't living together, I always play music. I play it now. I go to sleep by it sometimes.
And so what made you choose, like, to make the decision, like, okay, let's room together?
How did we become roommates? I was living in Wagner Hall, and like I said, I wasn't supposed to move off campus, and I didn't want to be on campus because, well, it was that the dorms just weren't social, and we were always doing something, you know, in the dorm. Something was always going on. So we say I had opportunity to move off with Al and DeWitt, and I moved off and never looked back. Because now, you know, in the dorm, you come in from home, you're still like a child to a degree. You know, you got the dorm director and all this. So when you move out on your own, you have all this freedom. And that's how we end up living together. You really become, in your mind, quote unquote, adults.
What year in school were you when you moved off campus?
Sophomore, the second part of my sophomore year, which I wasn't supposed to do. That's when we told them that I was living with the Dorsets.
And so, with kind of going in a different direction now. There was a little bit of activism going on in campus in Ball State. Not much, but how much of it were you aware?
What, the activism is going on now?
No, back when you were attending.
Oh, well, when I was attending, everything was going on, I was aware of.
Yeah.
And one of the things I learned when I was here at Ball State, I was telling my counselor got me in school, and he told me, he said, Foster, I'm not telling you not to be black, but you can't help you and anyone else on the corner of 15th and Broadway. That's the intersection in Gary. So many times when we did things, I was always there and planning of, but I also knew what he had told me, and I was always in the middle of the pack. And very seldom would you see me at the front of the pack if you pull some pictures out. And to show you how racism is, most of the people who were in the front of the pack, at some point in time, they got kicked out of school. You know, because we knew when we were marching, people on top of the administration building or wherever, taking pictures. And those persons who were up front for the most part, if they got a chance to put them out of school, they did.
So what people were in the front that you knew that got kicked out of school?
Well, there were quite a few over the years, and some of the names escape me. I know Ron ended up losing. Ron was very vocal. Ron Fields on the basketball team. Mm-hmm. That's how he ended up getting kicked off the basketball team. You know, anything they could find to get, to get you on. Tucker was involved, but not as much involved. But anything that they could find, we also used to say, well, they have FBI plants around here and everything, so there's a lot of rumors going around during that time, and, whether true or not, we don't know, but things did happen.
Why did they take those actions? Like, how do you know that they were kicked out for things like that?
Well, they ain't do anything else, anything more than those persons who were on the front line, for some reason or another, they were kicked out of school. If you were not on the front line, you didn't get kicked out of school. And
so you mentioned that you knew pretty much about everything. So what were some important events that you knew of that happened that you were a part of or knew was happening?
Here?
Yeah.
We were very, it was a thing, the multicultural center, all schools, white institutions, they had black houses and things like that. And Ball State was very, very slow in giving us one, so we had to fight for it. We really had to fight. We had some people who were very, very vocal, and I'm trying to think what was the incident when they built this school. Is it North? The school is right here. When they built that school, we marched on. I can't remember exactly why we were marching for that, but we had blacks and white. We were marching, protesting that school.
The Monty School?
Yeah.
The high school, the one they were building.
I think it was. I'm not quite sure, and I can't be quoted on that, but I think it was because they probably wanted a better school for the blacks in the city, and they were putting a new school out here.
Right, and the name of it escapes me as well. But so you were involved in a march,
yeah,
to protest against that. Okay,
yeah.
And what was that like?
Well, hey, we were just crowded, marching, and everything, and we had no real fears, then, but I just knew what to do to stay in school. We had to learn how to use the system.
In what ways?
So
like, what do you mean use the system? Like, in what ways?
If you were in front, you were a target. Okay. Many times, if you had a class and your grades weren't what you thought they should be, we had this thing about you going across campus. Where are you going? I'm going to speak with my professor. We're pointing, we're articulating. We'd go in and speak with the instructor because we weren't getting what we were supposed to have gotten out of the class. When your midterm grades come out. So I think if I had to do it all over again, I'd probably come out magna cum laude. But you're young, you don't know.
Yeah. And so, at this time, because you were here from 1968 to 1978, correct?
Actually, I consider myself a 72 graduate.
Okay.
Because what happened was I'm a 73 graduate, but I consider myself a 72 graduate. Because I went and I student taught in the fall of 72, and I was a technology major, and my strong area was graphic arts. And graphic arts teachers were hard to find. I was coming back to school to work on my master's and finish up. I needed one course. And to finish up, and the supervisor for industrial arts came by and saw me, and they twisted my arm, and I finished student teaching on a Friday and started teaching on Monday. So you go back and get that hour, and I came back in the summer and got that finished that hour up, so I consider myself 72 because I started working at 72. And then I came back during the summers working on my master's. So I wasn't here that long, during the summers working on the master's.
And so then, but you were here during a critical point in our nation's history with Vietnam and like Nixon and things like that, and you were around. So what was your perspective of all that going on, and how did it really affect Ball? Did it affect Ball State at all?
Well, one of the things that, with me, I fell below hours one time, and I got my greetings papers, draft papers, and I happened to be playing basketball, and my shoulder came out, my left shoulder. I had an old football injury. My shoulder came out, so the orthopedic surgeon was trying to impress upon me how bad my shoulder was. And I said, really? He said, yes. I said, well, do you think I could go and do military duty? He said, with a shoulder like that, no. So I said, well, I've been drafted. So he said, okay. He wrote me a letter called a true copy. It was about half a page. It was a 5.5 by 8.5 sheet with about this much print on it. And I waited until I finished. I was supposed to report Friday. I took the letter to the Muncie Draft Board Tuesday. And the Muncie Draft Board mailed it to the Chicago Draft Board. And I got a letter the following Tuesday telling me to report Thursday to Indianapolis. So that was, you know, and Vietnam was really hot during that time. That was 1969. And when I went to the Indianapolis draft board, we'd take a bus from here, go to Indianapolis, the induction center. So I went to the draft board down there, and this guy came by and he looked at me and he laughed at me. And it was a sergeant. He came and said, "You've been permanently rejected from service. You can't volunteer, and you can't enlist. You can't volunteer. We see you, pardon my language." This is what he said: "If your ass show up anywhere else, we're gonna kick you out. We got your records everywhere." And he said, "I know it hurts. In actuality, this is the truth. The sky opened up, and an angel stood up and said, 'Live your life.' And from that point on, you know, but Vietnam was hot. Your friends were, you getting calls that your friends were dying all the time over there. So, yeah, there were a lot of protests on, you know, of course, on campus about Vietnam. That was both black and white. You know, we were protesting Vietnam.
And you were involved in those protests?
Yeah.
What was that like? Because I know that
we were just marching, and you know, we just protesting against it.
And what was like the reaction of the campus community? Because in the research that I did is that the campus community at large wasn't really that aware of it, and the administrators really weren't that.
Well, I can't say. I can't believe the campus community wasn't aware of Vietnam, because it was affecting everyone, you know. So, you know, we marched, we protested against Vietnam.
Did you have any friends that went over to Vietnam?
Yeah. Yeah. Some didn't make it back, and some who did come back. Matter of fact, I had a cousin who just passed, and I always tell people, you know, you never know who you are, and he was a professional assassin. And I asked myself, how do you do that? He said, they teach you to kill in service without feeling. It's no different now. And, you know, a lot of people you talk to, they don't want to talk about it. I worked with a guy when I was working in the mills during the summer. And, I used to drink a little wine, a little whiskey and all like that. And, you know, he smoked marijuana and stuff. So I said, man, I ain't do that stuff. He said, man, they come wake you up at 12 o'clock at night time I'm going out in the jungle. And no sane person's going out in the jungle. So that war affected people mentally. You know, there are people I know that it affected mentally. And I haven't had, you know, feeling if you are any type of person and you take another person's life, it has to affect you. And probably they've taken more than one life. You know, someone who isn't decent, okay, or someone who can't be deprogrammed, but you know, that has to affect you. I know if I was to hit someone in a car, it'll affect me the rest of my life. You know, that's just how I feel about it. And
so, going on with the administrator's part, I understand that during this time with President Pruitt and everything, that was kind of a critical moment in Ball State's history, and there was a little bit of conflict between the faculty and the administrators, and was that really apparent to the student body?
Yeah, that was a little riff, and we were glad to see him go.
Yeah, why is that?
Because we didn't feel like he had our interests at heart.
What did he do to demonstrate that he didn't?
He didn't do anything to make it differently, as far as I'm concerned. He didn't do anything to improve it. For example, if you look at the, you know, it's a different time, but the president of Oklahoma University, when that organization was accused of hazing, he came right out and spoke against it. There were things going on here. There were instructors who weren't doing what they were supposed to do. You know, flunking blacks out at a high rate. He didn't do anything about it. You know, I mean, people gonna have their beliefs, but you can, you know, like say something about it. Let them know this will not be tolerated.
And so, what about, you weren't here for Emmons though, but I mean, was it just Pruitt, or was it just kind of like Ball State's history?
Well, I came in under Pruitt, so that's what I had to deal with.
Right. But do you think that it wasn't just like maybe it wasn't just him who was perpetuating those issues?
I think it was just the university itself. You know, it had not yet, the culture had not evolved. You know, it's like I've served Ball State alumni ambassador for Lake County. Whatever Ball State asked me to do, I did, and I was proud to be a Ball State graduate. When we built a new alumni center, I bought a big paver with my name and my wife's name, my grandson on it. And when President Gore was here and they went to the charter schools, sponsoring the charter schools, at that point I quit contributing to Ball State because charter schools are the exact opposite of what they had taught me, you know, and I just didn't believe in it. And I told her, you know, when I was at a meeting with her, you know, I came and did anything they asked me. I participated in the Bowen Institute. With whatever Ball State wanted, I did. But because I got a good education here, you know, I evolved from some of the things that happened then. But when you're going to ask me for my money, but you're going to take money out of my pocket when you start, you know, charter schools and stuff, and I just couldn't go along with it because I was president of the Gary Teachers Union for a while, you know. So that's a bitter pill. You know, see, they revoked some charters, and refused to renew some. That's good, but charter schools have not done any better than public schools. We had a school in Gary. They took the school over, and the current faculty at that time made better gains than the Edison Learning ever did. But they gave them the school, and now they haven't done any better. If you look at the stats for charter schools, they aren't any better than they're worse than public schools. And you have the cream of the crop, and you have the parental support. Yet, and still, Ball State is still back in charter schools.
And so this kind of goes into after Ball State. So when you got your degree, you were working in the summers to get your master's, correct?
Correct.
And then you were teaching back in Gary?
Correct.
So what was the series of events that led you back to Gary?
Led me back to Gary?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I was student teaching, I told you, it twisted my arm and gave me a job. Okay. You know, I finished student teaching on a Friday, started teaching on a Monday. And it just continued, you know. My plans were to go to law school. And some kind of way, I didn't go to law school, but I became a union representative. And I call that a jackleg lawyer, because you represent teachers in your building. I had over 100 teachers in my building. And I was a rep that represented them, you know, collective bargaining issues. And from that, I evolved into being an executive board member and president of the union. And
so you spent a very long time as a teacher there.
43 years.
43 years altogether. So what was that experience like? You mentioned before that the people you taught you became your colleagues and you became their boss.
Not boss, but
like
leader.
The representative
right.
on the union. So what was your experience like after Ball State? What did it give you?
It gave me the academic skills. Between Ball State and Omega Psi Phi fraternity, I got the organizational skills. All of these things which aided me in being president of the union and just and being on boards. Ball State was a great foundation in my life, you know. You don't always agree with everything your parents tell you to do and everything, so it's kind of like what Ball State is, but with a little point with these charter schools, a real sticking point. Other than the charter schools, we're fine, but the charter schools are a real sticky issue. But I can say nothing bad about the quality of education
Mm-hmm.
I got here at Ball State. I can talk about some of the things that happened in the process of getting it, you know. But the quality of education is great. I think, I don't know if it's me or the university, I stand out among my peers. You know, I look at some of the quality of education, some of the things they do, and what we were taught at Ball State is a big difference. At that time, you know.
And so, when you got to Gary, you were there for 43 years. You must really like education then.
I love it. You know, you see that light bulb go off, and I guess I was meant to be a teacher, you know.
Yeah.
You see that light bulb go off in students, you know. For the last 2.5 years, I was in the classroom after becoming president of the union. I had an illness. After becoming president of the union, I funded my program for 2.5 years because of the lack of funds. You know, so on December 31st, 2014, I said, it's time to go.
And then going into your personal life after college, when did you meet your wife, and then when did you get married?
I've been married to my wife, just celebrated 26 years, and we went together. We dated 5 years, so we've been together 31 years.
When did you meet her?
My wife was assistant manager of the bowling alley, and I was president of the Gary Teachers League, Bowling League, and that's how I met her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, how many kids do you have?
Well, I have one, and then we have two. I mean, she has, you know, she had 2 kids. Well, I raised them, so they mine.
Mm-hmm. But so she was your first marriage?
Yes.
And only marriage so far?
Yeah.
Or whatever.
There's only one of them I have.
Yeah.
I had a good time before I got married. So when I got married, I was settled and ready to be married.
Right. And so, what are the names of your kids?
Veronica, Anthony,
Mm-hmm.
and I have 3 grandkids.
Wow. And
I have a grandson who he's in college at Indiana, Purdue, Fort Wayne, and some of the stuff he was saying, I said, don't bring that to me, boy, because what he's telling me, I know better.
now, from what I saw in the Allen Williams collection, you guys do reunions quite a lot, don't you?
The Black Alumni Constituent
Yeah.
Society, yeah, this one.
Yeah. So what are those like?
It's a great deal of fun. You know, you get a chance to see guys and you see people that you went to school with, and some you didn't go to school with, and it's just a great time. You know, because although some of us are still around, we don't see each other, you know, as much. But then you get a chance to see, you know, everybody. Not everyone, but, you know, different people come back different years, but there are some of the same people who come back consistently.
Mm-hmm. And can I get your wife's name real quick?
Betty.
Betty Stevens?
Yes.
And so we're kind of near the end of our interview, so I was trying to go back and ask you a couple other questions from your early life. So when you were still in high school, Martin Luther King was assassinated. How did that affect you and your family?
Well, I told you, you know, it had a profound effect upon me because my dad had been a sanitation worker in Memphis, and his sister, my aunt, had worked for the hospital, and those were the people he was fighting for wages for. So, you know, hey, we could have still been there, and he would have been there fighting for us. So, I mean, you know, it was very, very touching.
And what was your opinion of Bobby Kennedy? Because that day he had spoken at Ball State, and then that afternoon, evening, he went and was speaking to in Indianapolis, and you know, and he was credited with helping with there not being riots in Indianapolis, and that happened in Detroit and Chicago.
Well, I think that Bobby would have been a great president. You know, he probably may have been a greater president than his brother, because his brother didn't get a chance to really do his full term, and by being Attorney General, he was sitting in the spot to observe. One of the things I've had a lot of leadership roles. A lot of things happen to you when you're in that first chair that others don't experience. You don't experience until you get there. But if you're sitting in a position, there's a preparation. If you're sitting there in preparation, you can see some things and observe some things, and you're sitting in meetings and different things, so he wouldn't have been going in cold. And he, being the Attorney General, he would have had a vantage point that others didn't have.
And how did the JFK's assassination affect your family?
Well, I think people felt like under Kennedy, things were going to really change, and I think people felt like that the powers that be did not want things to change, and that's why he was assassinated. So it's like, well, where are we going to go from here? But we're not going to go back. It's like when you look at, I think when you look at the, say, blacks who were in the military during World War II, they came from rural areas and stuff. And then they went out and they saw how others were living and everything. They weren't going back to that same style of living. So I think that's when Kennedy got assassinated, that people weren't going to go back to that style of living.
And did that have effects, like, in the atmosphere of your household? Did it change from after that day?
I think when you're young, sometimes you don't see things as clearly as you do as an adult or older. I see things clearer now than I say you do. An organization I'm in now, what I do now, I've been in leadership roles, and it's time out for me to be in the leader. It's time to mentor, and I try to mentor more. So when you're younger, you don't see it, you don't look at it from the same standpoint. I just turned 65, and a person 40 doesn't see things the same way I do. And I had a young man, he's in his 40s, he told me night before last, he said, I kid and joke with you a lot, but I learn a lot from you. The things you taught me, I'm able to use on my job.
And so I think we're at the end of our interview, because I don't have any more questions, or I think we've covered everything. Is there anything I haven't brought up that you would like to talk about now? Anything about how you felt about events, things of that nature?
No, I like to reiterate that I think I got a great education here at Ball State. I had some great professors, and I was just sitting around the other night, and I had a list I could think of a number of names, and some of them I could not think of their names, for courses I had, But one of the things I did, we were talking in the 60s and everything, I had the ceramics class. Didn't particularly care for the prop, I loved the class. And I made my mom a black cup and saucer. And this was before they didn't have black cups and saucers. And if you go to my mom's kitchen today, the black cup and saucer is there. And she told me, she said, now when I die, I want you to take that and keep it. But I learned that ceramics and a lot of skills and things I learned here at Ball State. My dad was construction working and everything, and like in math and all that. When I built my garage, people always talking about the Pythagorean theorem and stuff, and that's when it really came into being. When when I applied it. Now now they call it the applied arts over there now. It was industrial arts, industrial technology. Now it's the applied technology. And it's when I went over, it's interesting to see the evolution of the university, especially my department. And I was looking at doing the construction. I was looking at the runs. The young man was very nice. He took me through and gave me a tour. I asked him, it's a building closed, and he said, well, part of it is, he said, I'll show you. I said, well, I graduated. I was a 72 grad, and he took me through, and we peeped in classrooms that were there. And like I said, and I could see it, what they're doing, and I'm glad to see them because, see it. I became Cisco certified, and I was seeing all the runs and all the classes where they learning the program servers and all of that. And I wish we had had that much technology when I was in school.
And so, with the evolution of Ball State and its campus, so what is it like to see it built up like this? Because there certainly weren't this number of buildings here.
It was fantastic. I was telling you earlier, when I lived in La Follette my freshman year, from the corner, from the light, there was nothing. I think there was one house between the light and the teacher's college. And then they had a path that went, no, we made a path that you could go over to the practical arts building, to cut across to get over to the arts building and all of that. And one of the things they did at Ball State, you see where they have these asphalt walkways. Everywhere we walked the grass down, like right out here. Everywhere we walked the grass down, they put an asphalt path down. So, keep the beauty of the campus so you don't have that run down look. I'm just looking at all the buildings and everything. The campus is really beautiful. It's like looking at the parking garage over there. It doesn't really look like a parking garage. Now, the one behind the student center looks like a parking garage, but this one doesn't look like a parking garage. When we came, they didn't have architecture building per se. They had the Kwanzaa hut, the old Army half-barrel-like building. That's what architect students were. And you knew if you were going to be an architect student, you had to be up all night, day in, day out. I was, most of the growth on this campus has been since my time. All the older buildings, I think, the teachers' college was here. I think the TM building, I don't know what do you call it? Cooper Life, they changed it, Cooper Life. That was about one of the newest buildings on campus then. Academic buildings. So I can see all the growth and all that fill in and over. I think it's Calvert. Used to be homes over there, and now the university is taking all that buildings over there and the what's this? The music building across right here at the corner.
Yeah, right here. This one.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right here. Yeah. Right at the corner. The music building, because everything was in across the street in Memphis, building over there when I was in school. Just to see, hey, well, we knew Ball State was buying up everything, and eventually they would, I see the collegiate bookstore was gone. That was on the corner, right here. So what's really, I guess I'm glad I'm out of college because my grandson was telling me his book costs $150. I said, what? So what? If we had a book cost $20, $25, that was an expensive book. The average book was $6.95, maybe $10, but $150 for a Spanish book? Good God. So, but everything. When I first started teaching, I made $8,042. And that was decent money.
All right, so is there anything else that we didn't touch on? All right, so I just want to say thank you so much for coming down here today to talk to us and share your story for the project.
You're more than welcome.